name's Grace Beltowski. I'm a first-year professional writing and English major here at Michigan State University, and I went on the freshman seminar abroad trip in Germany. And the freshman seminar abroads are unique programs. They're specifically for freshmen. They take place in multiple different countries, mostly in Europe, but they're 2 weeks long, and they're just for freshmen like me to meet more incoming freshmen, get to know people, get a feel for what the college workload's going to be like, while also having this study abroad experience. So I want to start with a quote by Dennis Waitley, an author and psychologist. And the greatest gifts you can give your children are the roots of responsibility and the wings of independence. To me, this quote pretty much sums up any study abroad experience. We are being entrusted by our parents, our school, and our community to go off and travel into a different country, to practice responsibility and independence, to learn, and all while being immersed in a new culture with a completely different set of rules, values, customs. And sometimes that can be a bit of a challenge, and it's not always what we expect. My trip in Germany was definitely full of many different surprises. And I want to start with just a few initial observations that I made during my time there. The first one that I always like to tell people, and it's kind of silly, but it's that the Germans dress extremely nice. Me and my friends, especially, we'd always love to, whisper to each other, "Oh, look at that German boy. He's dressed so much nicer than the guys we have here." No offense. Just very clean cut, nice to look at, and that's something that I always like to tell people. But more importantly, one of the things that I really noticed was just that the Germans are extremely considerate of rules, laws, and social conduct. And one example that I have of this is crossing the street. So in Germany, if the crosswalk is red, you don't go. Sometimes here in the US, I do this all the time because I'm in a rush to get to my classes, but if it's red and there's absolutely no cars coming, I will just go because I have things to do, people to see, that sort of stuff. And not that the people in Germany don't have that stuff going on too, but to them, it's the rule that you don't cross the street until it's green. Another example would be with bike lanes. So kind of like here, we have pedestrian sidewalks, bike lanes, street. And again, if you're a pedestrian, you don't go in the bike lane. We learned this the hard way. A few of us would be walking into the bike lanes accidentally because we were such a big group, and we'd hear all of a sudden just this ding, 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 and it was just really obnoxious. And then all of a sudden, behind us, we see a biker just coming by, and we almost, some people almost got run over. But it's kind of like here at MSU, I've noticed too. That's one similarity. But again, just kind of respecting that boundary. That that's kind of an unspoken rule, but just an example of respecting that sort of tradition and value. And then finally, with transportation. So there is a subway system in Berlin and Munich. And so if we're here in the US, let's say we go to New York, you swipe your Metro card and that allows you into the subway system. But in Berlin and Munich, you don't necessarily need anything to get onto the actual subway. And what they have to regulate this is they have undercover police officers who will go around at random, and they'll come on board and they'll ask everyone who's just on this random subway route to show their transportation passes. And if you don't have it with you, you get fined. And this was one thing that our instructors really stressed to us throughout the trip. Every single morning when we were meeting to go out for the day, they'd be like, "Okay guys, make sure you have your transportation pass, because if you don't and you get caught, you're gonna get fined." So that was ingrained into my head, but I do want to share just a story of a personal experience that I had with this rule in particular. And because I did study folk and fairy tales while I was in Germany, I thought, why not share this as a fairy tale? So this is the story of the princess and the police. So once upon a time, there was a young incoming MSU freshman named Grace, whose dream was to travel the world. And one day, she got accepted to the FSA program in Germany at Michigan State. So she packed her bags and she got ready to depart for what she thought would be the trip of a lifetime. Indeed, Grace's experience was first filled with magic, good food, good friends, rich culture. She saw historic cathedrals, such as the Cathedral of the Holy Trinity in Dresden. She saw fairy tale castles whose names she still cannot pronounce. She saw breathtaking views like she'd never seen before. And she ate lots and lots of schnitzel. Then one day in Munich, Grace left behind her transportation pass at the hotel. It was only a 5-minute subway ride back home, but since she had just eaten Mexican food because she was in Germany, makes total sense, she decided that she did not want to have to walk back to the hotel. So she thought she would take a risk and get on the subway with her friends, even though she knew that she did not have her subway pass with her. As she and her friends were sitting there, they get to the first stop, nothing happens, she thinks everything's going good. And then as the subway keeps going again, all of a sudden, a seemingly ordinary man comes up to her group. And all of a sudden, he asks for everyone to show their transportation passes. And Grace, knowing that she didn't have her transportation pass at first, she ruffled through her bag to make it look like she had it, so maybe he'd walk by and not notice her. She tried slumping in her chair, but ultimately he came and he asked for her transportation pass. And since she didn't have it, she got fined 60 euros. And everyone stared at her, and she lived happily ever after. So as you can imagine, this experience was extremely embarrassing and mortifying for me. Just in that moment, I remember thinking I'm that stereotypical American kid, that rowdy teenager who doesn't follow the rules and thinks that she can do whatever she wants. And everyone on the subway, I felt like there was a big arrow pointing down at me, this girl doesn't belong here, she's not from here. And on top of that, I was also a scholarship student, and so I just thought, man, the school gave me a decent amount of money to go on this trip because they wanted me to have this experience and to learn. And I completely blow it by getting in trouble with the police. And then just finally, I was also concerned about how my parents would react. If we go back to the quote that I had at the beginning, nothing says roots of responsibility and wings of independence more than your parents allowing their 18-year-old daughter to go off into a foreign country for 2 weeks without their supervision, with limited communication, all on her own. Fortunately, my parents were very understanding of what had happened, but still, definitely a kind of an awakening for me. And I think for me, this was very much a fundamental moment, not only during this specific trip, but during my young adult life as well. Going through this, I really learned just the value of responsibility. It was a mistake that I left my transportation pass in the hotel. I didn't mean for it to happen, but even mistakes do come with consequences, and I learned that in this case, I had to pay 60 euros to pay for it. And then again, also just being observant, learning to be more observant, and really taking authority seriously. I'd never been in trouble with the law in my life before, so I think, especially also being in Germany without my parents' supervision, I kind of took that for granted. But now I've noticed, coming here at MSU, I really need to, kind of look out for myself more. And then finally, the other major thing that I learned was just that there's a lot of differences between cultures, but just because there are differences doesn't mean that those differences are negative ones. I remember at first thinking why did I get this ticket? Why do they have this rule in this, specific culture? But then I realized that, in the US we have Metro cards to swipe. In Germany they have undercover police officers, and that's just a difference. It's not a good or bad thing. It's a difference in culture, and those exist, and we need to celebrate those. Finally, I just have the ticket that I got from my trip to Germany. It's up there on the screen. It's all in German, so I can't really read it except for the 60, because that's what I paid. So at first when I got this, I remember it was sitting on my hotel desk, and I just wanted to rip it up. But then the next morning, I went downstairs and I told my instructor everything that had happened, and she was just like, you know what, that kind of stinks, but you should frame it. And I'm like, okay, that's not really what I had in mind. But I didn't frame it, but what I do is I keep it in a box underneath my bed at home with a bunch of other special memories that I have, letters, photos, my wisdom teeth, weird stuff like that. And now when I go through that box and I look at it, it really holds just a very special memory for me. And it's also something that no one else in my trip was able to bring back with them, which I think was really not necessarily a good thing. And this wasn't the only thing I brought back from my trip. Obviously, I brought back other souvenirs, but one of the most important things I brought back was just a newfound sense of responsibility. I've noticed now, since I've been here, a freshman now for 3 months at MSU, every single day, I always make sure that I have my key and my MSU ID. And I don't think I would be that conscious of those things if I had not gone through this situation. And then also just having more passion and curiosity for traveling and studying abroad. Being on this trip and especially experiencing the difference in culture in this kind of weird and unexpected way just really showed me that there's so much out there that I can learn. Sometimes it involves going through mistakes, but I think that I want to get out there and I want to make those mistakes that I can learn and kind of expand my horizons. Thank you.